6 years ago, almost to the day, I started Run Adventurer. In some ways, it feels like yesterday, and in other ways, 1,000 years ago. I just wanted to share my love of the local countryside, and over those 6 years, we've visited hundreds of different places, and I brought you along for the ride. I never really meant for the channel to be personal about me, but I guess the nature of a YouTube channel with one presenter is it kind of ends up being about that person, doesn't it? So you've also followed my ups and downs. So in the early days I was running, everything was peachy, and I was constantly saying, get out and enjoy it, because you don't know how long you're going to be able to do it for. And then bang, blocked artery, could hardly stand up. There certainly wasn't any running then. And then surgery to clear it, and then I thought it was all clear and all good again, and I had a little bit of a respite, and then bang, more chest pain, and it took them nearly a year to figure out that it was microvascular angina. And they've also found other problems along the way. I have a congenital heart defect and bicuspid aortic valve, and an enlarged aorta, which at some point may need operating on to prevent an aneurysm. That's just me. Anyway, the journey continues. Back in January, I did a video called 55 Today, and what's next? And so this video is about what came next. So where was I in January? Well, back then I weighed 116 kilos, large amount of visceral fat, really wasn't very well. You know, I could barely bend over to tie my shoelaces, I could barely walk, I was out of breath, and it was making my angina pain a lot worse too. Lots and lots of chest pain. And I was circling the drain, or that's the way it felt. I thought, if I don't do something, I won't be here much longer. And yeah, I guess one of the wake-up calls for me was I had a company that make oxygen rebreathers, these little things that go up your nose and pump air into them when you're not getting enough air in. They'd seen one of my videos and thought I might like to be a brand ambassador. And yeah, definitely time to make a change. What I really wanted was to lose the weight, in particular the visceral fat, which from my understanding causes insulin resistance, and it's sort of, you're going round and round and down the drain. The more of it you got, the harder it is to lose weight, the easier it is to gain weight. The more inflammation you've got, the worse you feel. That's certainly the way it felt to me anyway. And I wanted to get the visceral fat down, get the weight down, and ideally get back to running. Now, why is running important to me? I'm never going to win any races, but that's not what it's about. For me, it's about getting out into the countryside on my own. It's that peace that comes down on you after you've run for a couple of miles. Just everything melts away. So it's August now. Where am I? Well, I'm down 23 kilos. Here's a photo. This isn't an after photo. This is a during photo. I've not finished. I'm not done. I want to lose another 8 to 10 kilos. And I'm under no illusions that the last 8 to 10 probably harder than the first 20. Just because I lost 20 is no guarantee that I'm going to carry on and lose the rest. So what is finished? What is the goal? Well, there are different metrics, aren't there? Percentage body fat, the ratio of your height to your waist, and then there's BMI. Now, I've made a conscious decision personally, just personally, I'm no expert, to not chase BMI. The reason being that for me to have a BMI of 25, the upper end, my body fat would have to be about 14%. And if I was to try and hit the middle of the BMI range, well, the only way I could physically do that would be to starve myself and burn off muscle mass. Because if I had 0%, I would be heavier than that, which of course is not possible. So what are the goals? Well, what is a sensible percentage body fat? For someone my age, in my mid-50s, it's 11 to 22%, so I'm told. And I think one of the key metrics to go, if you're going to go, use two metrics, and the second is that waist to height. And so what I'm aiming for is a body fat which I can get to and maintain, which is healthy, and still retain all that healthy muscle mass, which I put on deliberately for old age. Now, the second metric is the ratio of the height to waist measurement, and I'm aiming to get that down to about 0.5. Then there's training, running. So almost as soon as I started the diet, there was a reduction in my chest pain level before I'd really lost any weight, which I assume is because my diet, which included bread and all the highly processed food, was inflammatory. No expert. But what I can tell you for sure is the pain level dropped really quite quickly. Not gone, not by a long chalk, but it dropped. And so, yeah, I started running again. By about March time I was running. The problem I have with training now is what I call the leaky bucket. So I'll go and train, and you get a bit fitter, and then I will have an attack of chest pain. And when I get an attack of chest pain, typically I'm unable to do much of anything for 7 to 10 days. Typically I will end up just having constant chest pain. Just walking around is difficult, running is completely out of the question. And so what then happens is you lose that fitness you've just gained, and so you're constantly trying to fill this bucket which is leaking away the fitness as you go. I don't know. Somebody recently said to me, wise man, he said, just keep moving. And I think that is the key message, really. Just keep moving, do as much as you can, and recognise if you have a limitation. You know, so if I'm get chest pain, I could be running and I'll get chest pain, and it feels like needles are being driven into my chest. Now, trying to run through that would be very, very silly, because that pain means that my heart is not getting enough blood, and so I'm not doing my heart I'm certainly not making it any better. I'm no doctor, but it would not surprise me if I'm greatly increasing the risk of having a heart attack doing that. So, no. Run when you can. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, do the cryptic crossword. The other big issue is food and feeling trapped. I guess some of you watching this might find yourself in the same position. You know, you've got 35-40% body fat and you're spiraling down the drain and you're constantly hungry. So when I was at that weight, I was dieting. You know, it's not like I was just going hell for leather eating. I was dieting, but it didn't work. If I ate a piece of bread, I couldn't stop. I would eat a whole loaf. You know, I think the thing to understand with the weight is, yeah, if you've not got a lot of weight to lose, a little bit of willpower goes a long way. But if you've got a lot of weight to lose and you've been that way for a long time and you feel trapped, you've got to realise it's a hormonal problem. There are a number of hormones at play. So, for instance, there's the comfort eating, isn't there? Someone upsets you and you go and eat something. Why is that? Your body's going to release happy drugs into your brain and just for a little while make you feel better. That's not good, is it? Then there's stress and cortisol. That's been a big problem for me. So you need cortisol. It gets you up in the morning. But if your cortisol level is too high, if you're a worrier, it means that you can't get to sleep at night, or you get to sleep and then you wake up in the middle of the night. You can't settle, you can't relax, and it drives you, high cortisol drives you to put on visceral fat. Yeah, that one's not a good one. Then of course there's the satiety hormone. Tells you when to stop eating. I don't know about you, some people seem to be able to eat 3 bites and they're done. Me, I don't know about you, but you know, I could quite easily eat a meal that's designed to feed a family of 4. That's got to be a part of the problem. Though I suspect a key part of the problem is insulin resistance. No expert, but you get high visceral fat, you get insulin resistance, your insulin's too high. That flicks the switch, turns off your ability to burn fat and tells your body to store it, which is not what you want. So, but you're not trapped really if you know the right way out. And I used to have I've struggled for years with my weight, but I'd reached a stage with a very low carbohydrate diet where I got the weight down and kept it down for about 5 years. Then with all heart troubles, I've been all the way around the houses, tried all the different diets before coming back to a lower carb diet. It still was too many carbs, I fell off. That's the thing with a low carb diet, it's got to be strict enough so that your hunger's gone. And then there's no problem. At about the 5-month point in the diet, I did have a bit of a wobble. My hunger started to increase. So whether I'd eaten too much or the wrong thing, or whether it's just that having lost 20 kilos, my body goes, you know, I quite like it at this weight. Let's make him a bit hungrier, whatever. My hunger increased and the weight loss stopped. Then there was also, you get food boredom, you know, so my diet, scrambled eggs, breakfast, lunch of meat and vegetables, handful of nuts, you know, very simple food really. And yeah, you wouldn't say no to a biscuit, would you, if you've been eating that for 5 or 6 months? And it's very tempting if you are hungry to fall off. So what did I do? You refocus, and I'm calling it phase 2. That's where I am now. Basically, I returned to like the induction, the very beginning of the diet, what I did, which was when you start the diet, you actually eat a little bit more actually, but it's the right food, a little bit more of the right food. So you you're satiated and the appetite drops again. And that's where I am now, not hungry. And I'm losing weight again. 23 kilos down and counting, and my waistline is dropping all the time. There's another reason the channel's been quiet recently. My life has changed. So, several things. Stress. I think I touched on this in the January video. So, I have a part-time job. It's a desk-based job. My experience is in marketing. Marketing jobs, as a rule, you're spinning lots of plates. It's quite stressful, and there are expectations. So, but that's what my skills are, and I can't get a low-stress job because I physically can't. They involve you standing up, walking around, picking things up, doing things, and I just can't do that now. I can't stand up for a whole shift. So something's got to change, because at the end of the day now, I spend the day 8 hours straight looking at 2 screens, typing instructions into this one, typing instructions into that one. I get home at the end of the day and I'm mentally exhausted, absolutely mentally drained. So even if the following day isn't a work day and I'm at home, I just can't sit at a computer and edit a video. Because I'm just mentally drained, and that's not sustainable. I say that the stress of it is, to a large part, probably why I gained weight very quickly, and also it's affecting sleep. It's just affecting my life in general. Of late, I'm forgetting things. I now understand why people use the phrase, "I'm losing my mind," because that's the way it feels. You go to, recall something that you know the answer to, and there's just a void where the information should be. I'm sure it's just burnout. I'm just burnt out. So it can't go on. So over the next few months, either if the people I work for, it's not their fault, it's just the nature of the job. If they can use me at a fewer number of hours, then yeah, I'll carry on and work a day a week, a day and a half a week, whatever. If not, I'm just going to have to retire and use my personal pension to bridge the gap between now and state retirement age, which was going to be hard, because it's going to be living on a very small amount of money, and even that we're not finished yet. The other issue I have is, so my priorities, let's get this clear. So number 1, family, wife, children, my dad. Then next up is exercise, because it's going to help me live longer. So there have been times where I thought, shall I sit down and edit a video, or shall I go for a run? And I've come to the realization that the answer is I should always be going for the run or going to the gym. That comes first, and then I come back afterwards and edit video with what time's remaining. So and I mentioned my dad there, and unfortunately I've realised there was a problem for a few years, but he's now had a diagnosis, and he's going to need me more and more and more. I'm now going a couple of times a day, 3 or 4 times a week, and I can see me having to spend more and more and more of my time, such that I'll probably have to stop work anyway, because I'll probably have to care for him. Which brings us round to what we're looking at behind us. You might have noticed the sun is just starting to fade, and that's because it's the solar eclipse today. It's so I thought we'd come and film it as a bit of B-roll for the video, but it's a good, metaphor analogy for Run Adventurer really, and what's happening now and what's coming. I do as much Run Adventurer as I can in my spare time, and I have less spare time at the moment. There's a bit of an eclipse, but it'll pass, you know. And I love making the videos, I love exploring, and I'm approaching retirement age one way or the other. And so, yeah, I'm not going anywhere, and I will keep producing content. But I don't know quite how often I'm going to be producing content in the next, 6 months, 12 months. I'd like to tell you the answer, but I just don't know. As to what sort of content I'll be filming, I'd like to think I'll be filming running content. I'm certainly going to keep trying, but if I can't run, I'll walk, and I'll explore walking. And as that chap said, that very wise man, just keep moving. Anyway, enough of me talking. Should we watch this eclipse? Thanks for watching. I will be back with more. Take care, folks. See you soon. It's starting to get dark now. It's like dusk all of a sudden. Starting to get bright again. Time to go home, I think.